Hi friend, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and today we are focusing in right here on the Onyx NX1 and talking about some ways that you can customize it to make just a really awesome show for your next event, whatever it may be. If you're new to the NX1, these are kind of the tips, not overall programming in the software, but how to apply what Onyx gives you and kind of get the most out of an NX1. So the first thing we're going to do, the first thing to look at is if you are programming like really anything more than just very simple stuff, you want an NXK with your NX1. Okay, these guys are very inexpensive. They attach right to the side of the NX1 magnetically, so most people end up going here on the right side as a right-handed console. Sometimes I change it up, I'm a lefty, and stick it over here on the left-hand side, which is pretty cool. But no matter which you do, the NXK is just, if you're doing any programming, it is a invaluable, very, very important part of an Onyx NX1 rig, and I would not use an NX1 without it, except in those situations where programming is just so minimal. Okay, if you haven't done this before, when you first do start your console, because system preference type things are console by console, they're actually not show file saved in Onyx, you want to set up your NX1 encoders. Okay, now by default, and this is what it should be in your console by default, they are going to be set to be the side encoders here on the screen. If they're not, you can go to the menu. In the main menu under General, there's a section called NXK Encoders right there. I know you can't read it, but that's okay. And you can set it to be screen or parameter. By default, it's set to screen. Then to actually use them, your 4 parameters on your console here, these are going to be your main 4 in the software. When you select something here, you'll see that these line up with that perfectly, but these guys, however, do not. So to set them up, we'll just go ahead, we'll hold down edit, we can click the encoder. That's the easiest way to do it, and then you get to choose what you're going to want on that encoder from the menu options. My favorites to do for an NX1 are encoder 1, intensity. Encoder 2 and 3 are going to be pan and tilt, and I personally actually want to get in the habit of doing tilt and then pan, but every console ever has pretty much done it pan and then tilt, and even though that's the opposite of the way that you should use pan and tilt, you should always tilt first. It's kind of how they are, so I'll leave that up to you. And then the fourth one is like, okay, what parameter do you want to get to most often last? And I would argue after intensity and pan and tilt, there's not much. Now, that being said, caveat, if you don't have moving lights, if you just have LEDs and conventionals, then you might want to do intensity RGB. Might work. Or else, go down to, there are 3 sections along the bottom of this window. You may not have noticed those before, but you have the ability to have, you have the ability to fat finger it on the touch screen, but you have the ability to do effects channels, so that's your effects parameters, or group keys. So the group keys is where it really gets interesting because, sorry, not the group keys, it is the effect channel here in rate. You now have the ability right here to set your global fade, your global effects, your live time, etc. via the 4th encoder. So depending on what you're doing, how you run your show, I would pick which one of those you mess with the most. If you do a lot of sneaking in and out of different things in your programmer, you may want to use live time. That's what I use. But you also may want to do global effects if that's more valuable to you, or even the global fade time. Just having that on a knob right there, ready to go, is just a great idea when you're first starting out on the NX1. Okay, what else should we talk about on the NX1? Well, you definitely want to, if you haven't, take your quick view and customize it to your needs. Okay, by default, the quick view, when you hold this little quick view key, comes up and it is customizable, and we have a video on that we'll put here. by default, it has your keypad, your parameters, and then some different views. Okay, again, if you're following my advice here and you're picking up an NXK, which we keep in stock all the time at Learn Stage Lighting Gear because these things are just awesome and they fly off the shelves constantly because they're so useful. If you're using an NXK, now not everything on this quick view is really going to be applicable because there's a keypad and you've got a keypad, right? So wipe that out of there, put something else in there that you'd want to get to on occasion. For example, I often will just put some programming stuff in there, put some groups and preset windows in there so that in the middle of a show, maybe you've got a lifetime set, you've got some playback buttons on your screen or something like that, but you want to be able to just smack this button right here, and then on your screen you have, I don't have it right now, but you have some groups and some different parameters that you can hit via presets and be ready to rock and roll. The next portion of the NX1 are going to be our multi-function keys. Okay, so they're right here, our multi-function keys, and there's a few important ways that they work. Number one is they are, I like to go first to the playback mode, which they are in by default. Okay, so the play mode, and this is now 10 playbacks, and it shows up right here on the side. Okay, playbacks 11 through 20. The cool thing about that is if I hit this button right here, the playback swap, now, what was on my faders is now on the buttons. Okay, this one's playing, and vice versa. What was now on the buttons is now on the faders. We can flip those back and forth at will. So during a show, when you're running things live, it's great to be able to have secondary buttons that you may run through some different effects on, whatever you want to do. But knowing that, you probably won't have it up on your fader to have the intensity full time, but when you want, you can just swap it over with that button, the fader swap. You can adjust the intensity and go back to your main 10 faders. Now, the bass, F keys, and effects section of these multifunction buttons is the last thing I want to hit because it's really important to set these up well when you customize your NX1. More often than not, I like to sit within the playback or the F key mode. I don't really love, I like physical buttons for the parameters, right? So that I can just go, okay, here I've got my intensity, pan, tilt, color, gobo, beam effects, and then framing. Now, on most shows, honestly, that I use an NX1 on, I'm not going to do a lot in beam effects or framing. I'm mostly going to be in intensity, pan, tilt, color, gobo, and beam. And that happens to be 5. So the way I like to set it up is instead of basically being like, oh, I'm in bass, okay, now I want to flip over to effects, okay, now I want to flip back, okay, right. I like to just set up the 5 and 5 on an F key, okay, nice and simple, so that my F keys are actually intensity, pan, tilt, color, gobo, beam, effects, effects timing, fanning, grouping, rate. Okay, that's how I like to set it up personally. That's a preference, but I think it's a really great idea because now you've got a hard physical button for the 10 most common attribute types that you, or not attribute types, but the selectors that you grab to assign what your encoders are doing at that given time. Okay, if you really feel like saving some space, you really could take intensity and pan tilt off and not even set F keys for those, because we've hard-coded those to our NXK encoders so that they're always there. Granted, some nuance there. I like making tweaks with pan tilt on my NXK encoders, but I found that I like using the larger encoders when I'm making big movements or doing a lot of position updates because it just goes faster. I hope this video has given you some ideas, some inspiration on some things really specific to NX1s that you can do to make sure you have a great event. If you loved this video, be sure to give it a like, and way more important than that, if you're in the US and you need any Onyx gear or lights in general, head over to Learn Stage Lighting Gear. We love to help people like you get the right gear, and we love to bundle training with it and answer any questions you have and just be the most helpful, useful retail outlet out there, the most useful place that you can get Onyx stuff that we can help you with. So skip the big guys, come to us. We would love to help you guys so much, and it would mean the world to us. And having the gear and selling consoles and being a part of that just providing that value to you guys. You need a console, we can sell it. Helps us to make these videos. So if you like them, you should buy from us. That's basically, that's the sales pitch. So anyway, have a great day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in our next video. Thanks.